be choppy. Bridget, if I continue to be choppy for you, would you give me a thumbs down or thumbs across sign? And then I'm just going to turn my video off, and
Okay.
maybe that'll help with my bandwidth. I think it's probably a bandwidth issue.
Okay.
So welcome to all. The agenda is in the chat, and we have 2 hours blocked out. We're probably not going to use all of it. Pardon me. But we wanted to have a chance to connect before the end of the year to pull last items together and to talk about summer work. Some of our summer work is going to include talking about developing a new RFA. At this point, we do not know what our funding situation is relative to Revite or a few other things for that matter. But because we are assuming that the cycle continues to roll forward, we will continue to plan and prepare and make sure we're in a good place with this. So we will be asking you later on to check your calendars. We're going to try to identify a couple of time periods during the summer when we will be able to make a check-in with one another, maybe an hour and a half. And it'll be primarily looking at issues relating to the RFA. So I'm going to pause there because I think Linda has some business that she has to do, statutorily required business that she has to do, and then we'll go on from there.
Right. Thank you, Dan. And you are still a little murky on the audio for me. I don't know if that's happening for Bridget or anyone else still. Yeah, you're a little, I think we can make out what you're saying, but it's a little tricky. So, okay, we'll keep our fingers crossed now. Okay, so yes, hi everybody. This is the time to read public comments. We have not received any, but for the record, as I always like to say, we do 30 days before this meeting put a notice on the CTE Revite Grant webpage indicating the date of the meeting, giving an email address for people to submit public comment if they would like to, and we have received none. And unless anybody has questions or comments about that, I can dive right into a very brief report on current status and reporting. The comprehensive final report was sent to the grant recipients about a week ago. It's not due until September 15th, but we thought, well, maybe we'll put it into their hands as soon as we can, as soon as it's ready, so they know what will be asked of them for September. And we've already gotten a few, nothing back yet because it's kind of long, but we've gotten a few questions from folks about completing it. And what I will do is I'm going to email that to everybody. It's in a Word version, and rather than try and convert that to Google, which sometimes messes up the formatting, I'm going to email that to you. It's just the blank form. It's 12 pages long, kind of extensive, intentionally, because we're asking a lot of information here, but at least you'll know what is being asked. And it's pretty standard. It's based on the final report that we constructed 2 biennia ago. The one that went out last year for the 1921 was really truncated, primarily because everything was truncated in 19 through 21 with the grant and through the pandemic and through actual activities. So we were mercifully short with what we asked folks to share about their Revite experiences during that time. So let me get that off to you. Okay, and as just, yes. You don't necessarily have to pour over it right now. It's more for your reference, just so that you know what is being asked of the grantees. And that is what I have for now.
Thanks very much, Linda. Any questions for Linda? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and talk about final numbers on supplemental grant funding. We had several requests. We had a request that opened up an opportunity for investigating if other programs needed funding to complete the work that they were doing. And you'll see here the list of requests. They are not any different really than what we saw during the last meeting, just simply firmed up. They have gone through the electronic grants management system, or the EGM system. The two larger buckets, the two $25,000 grants, were such that they raised the total level going to a particular school to the point where they needed to be reviewed for legal sufficiency by Department of Justice. For certain guidelines and so forth that we have to follow and adhere to, and that was one of them. That's not necessarily a choice, it's part of protocol. And so those tend to slow down because of that. We do note that the $22,000 supplemental grant to Ben Lapine Marshall High School has passed through. Paperwork has been submitted to the district, which basically is them acknowledging the grant amount, which they have to do just as they do with the original grant. And so that one is pretty much in the done category. We have the two that are being reviewed for legal sufficiency and the others that will be going out for signatures soon. We continued making good progress, or pushing forward on it. I guess it's probably a better way of saying it, is pushing forward on it following our last meeting, and continue to shove the process along. And that's kind of where we are. We'll have a roundup when we meet during the summer, when we touch base during the summer. And incidentally, if you're not able to meet during the summer, you'll receive information in writing so that you'll be kept up on what's going on just the same. So that'll help ensure that all works as well as it can, and let you know if there are any questions, comments, concerns, etc. To review some of the guidelines for grants, as Jerry pointed out at the beginning of our conversation, we do have to require that all services be rendered and all products be received by districts or ESDs by the 30th of June. One of those things that we can't change, that we can't adjust. It simply is the way it works, and it's kind of a double or triple witching hour. It's the end of the biennium, the end of the fiscal year, that sort of thing. And so individual programs have up to 45 days following the close of the grant to do their reimbursement. So we do assume we'll have some programs that complete their work and then do their reimbursements during the summer. That this is, people are aware of this. We've talked about this in the past. Occasionally we reiterate this. People bring up questions about how this is to be done. We point them back to the RFA and we give them constructive language to help them through with that. So that's something that we'll continue to talk about. You can see the total of the supplement there at the bottom. And I'll pause there and see if there are any questions or comments on this particular topic before I go on and talk about the grant spending to date. Yeah, seeing no hands, seeing no raised eyebrows. We'll go on and we'll talk about spending to date. Reimbursements through the 6th of June, 4.26 million. So about 58% of the original amount. And then you see the claiming deadline and the spending deadline both listed there. We have noticed recently an increase in the number of reimbursement requests and the size of the reimbursement requests. The numbers you see are not quite up to date. I received at least one in the last couple of days that were last week, zero claimed dollars for the work that they were doing, but have progressed to the point where they were claiming a substantial part or all of the money. So I think I had at least one, maybe two that claimed 125,000 in one fell swoop. So programs are waiting until they complete a body of work, and then they're reaching out and requesting the reimbursement. So that's the status there. As we move through the month, we'll obviously be very, very interested in how people are doing. In past histories, those of you who've been with us on this ride before know that a substantial chunk of the money ends up being claimed in the last week or two. And I think Linda and Art will bear out that, in fact, the last couple of days tend to be really, really busy as people are trying to get things paid for, and then depending on what their accounting basis is for a particular entity, they either try to get it done by the end of the fiscal year, or they'll claim during the summer. But we at this point can't really forecast what it's going to look like as we get to the end of the entire grant cycle. But it is encouraging that we're getting more people submitting claims and more people submitting larger claims as things are getting done. So I'll pause there. And Jerry, I don't know if you want to ring in here on anything, because you were commenting regarding the deadline, and I don't know if there's anything that we want to talk about as a Revite family about that, or whether that was just kind of the reality of life in the districts. So I'll leave you space to talk about that.
Daniel, you talked about 58% spent, and you talked about history. How does that compare at this time? You say that's pretty typical, pretty normal, or are we behind?
Could you do that one more time? Part of that dropped out on me.
Well, it looks like we spent about 58% of the original amount.
Correct.
Is that pretty standard for this time? I mean, we're 2 weeks away. Is that pretty standard? You mentioned history in your comments, but I didn't grasp if that was the norm, 58%. And I know that number's gone up a little bit, but not probably significantly.
Jerry, I think it's a little low versus where we typically are. We had some real problems, of course, a couple of years ago. That cycle we went through that bumped into COVID, and we had a lot of folks who just didn't claim. But I think we're a little behind, but I'm seeing more regular activity with claims coming in, and we don't have anybody necessarily. We've had one request in the last couple of days for could we have a 1 month extension, which of course I've had to answer no, because we can't. And I think previous to that, we had a question a couple of weeks ago about the possibility of extension. So people are either saying nothing and submitting, or we're getting occasional questions about how to apply funds and what they can use funds for. And we did have one that was shifting from some personnel costs to picking up some equipment. Our only caution was, you're almost out of time. You better make sure you can get it.
So what I'm wondering is if there's a correlation between the Revite grant spending and high school success spending, which might lead me to believe that they've got too much money.
I wouldn't disagree with you. We haven't actually thrown that into a spreadsheet and analyzed it yet. And that's something I think we probably should do this summer.
to get a feel, because I personally, anecdotally, have noticed that there's this whole phenomenon of high school success has grown in size and scope, and Revite has not been that big. Or maybe the size of Revite is not a thing, that's not an issue. But it seems like it has been less the case that people are going through and redeeming or reimbursing off of the Revite. And we can play around with that and take a look at it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't some sort of connection in there.
Yeah, and I'm sort of thinking in the back of my mind as we move forward with the 23-25 biennium, maybe we need to factor that into our decision making. Where does high school success fit into their overall program? And maybe the Revite should be a supplement to that, so to speak. Not, I understand supplement, supplant, different concept, right. Supplement to it. Because, I just, doggone, you would think they'd be scarfing this stuff up and using it. And so I think when I look at some of these high school success dollars, like one that you and I talked about, they had in their high school success plan exactly what they put in the CTE Revite. But no one knew that until we really got a chance
until we knew it.
High school success plans. And so I think that we might want to put a component coming up, something to think about how does this support or supplement your high school success funding in CTE so they don't get stuck not being able to spend the money. Tom may have a different perspective. I know he sees a little bit of it there. But he got so much money, he didn't know what to do with it either. So, yeah.
I want to be Tom when I grow up. So,
first have to grow up, Dan.
we know that's not happening. So that takes care of that. I'm not growing up.
But it's something to think about, I think, as we move forward, because we just got so many little pots of money there that schools are applying for anything and everything, and then they're not using it. And then we go to the legislature and ask them to support what we're doing, and they say, well, you didn't spend the last money we gave you. So I think we have to be very careful how we move forward with it. Somebody else may have some different thoughts about it.
I think it goes without saying that it seems like it's harder to get people to spend the money now. And I never really thought I'd be saying those words.
Well, part of it is that, like we've talked about before, if you've got something in there that you are trying to renovate a building or do something with it, boy, that's tough. Supply chain issues, and then trying to find a contractor who will come in and do what they told you they were going to do when you wrote the grant. That's another.
And we mentioned earlier, and I'll just reiterate it here to keep it top of mind, that we're going to kick around some of those ideas when we talk over the summer about the adjusting and the renovation of the RFA and decide what we want to do. And I would be really interested to know, and this has been talked about a couple of different times in a couple of different ways, are we at a position where we want to take Revite, which ended up being dramatically downsized and grant sized as of, I think, the previous biennium when we had the substantially different cycle, let me put it that way. And we ended up with tiny grants because there was some sort of supposition existing in the ecosystem that was not supported really by anything other than, I think, educated guesses that large grants were hard to spend by small programs. I'm not sure that that's necessarily true. So maybe we'd be better off with better guidance and larger tranches of money for grants instead of trying to make people's lives easier by making the grants small. I see a couple of heads nodding. And we did talk about resizing the grant. So I think it probably would be something we want to keep on the agenda and talk about this summer. Just Jerry, just anecdotally, since you have so much contact and you have more single A schools than anybody else, as far as being a coordinator is concerned, do people seem to be uninspired because the number is too low, even though your schools are small?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily it. Again, I think it's a balancing act. When I look at my larger schools, and in this region, that means 2 4A districts. When I look at them and look at the fact that they got 800,000 or 900,000 in high school success funds, 600,000 for one school district, that's pretty significant. And so when you base that on ADM, the smaller schools then have very little money in their high school success. I'd say that anything below 4A, maybe even 4A. But the point is that the less ADM you have, the less money you have, the more important that something like a CTE Revite is to that school district, because they can't backfill with high school success. And so I think that's something we need to look at as we move forward. But at the same time, you don't want a larger district who's got some real vision about where they want to go with their programs. You don't want to leave them out either. But I think they have to better justify how they're going to use both sets of funds. And they may use them together. One might support the other. And then I think that's a different conversation. So I don't see the little schools as looking at it as a small amount. $125,000 to a little school is analogous to $500,000 to a larger school. They're not going to need that much equipment to begin with at the same scale. So I think that I don't think it's that. I just think it's what I predict is that all this money that we've had in the last 3 years due to COVID and all these other funding sources, I think that's going to dry up eventually. And I think you'll see a different attitude around this CTE Revite. So that doesn't help us.
Okay.
I just see a totally different attitude that's in this region. And size is not as big a concern, I don't think. I think the small schools certainly see that 125 is a huge amount for them. And they all, part of that issue is 14 out of my 16 1As applied for and got that grant the last biennium. And so they're not as prone to go out and get it now.
Essentially leaving space for other people to step in and
Absolutely.
do it. But the people who are stepping in and doing it are showing some very interesting spending or investing habits.
That's right.
So what I'm hearing is maybe not so much what's being offered, but how they knit it together and how they use it. It seems like there's a real batch of confusion, and maybe that's where the integrated guidance concept could be useful to have high school success and Revite sort of working together to help figure out how to address things and taking things off of the table subject to what you all think is best that end up being distractions or being ways of driving the truck into the ditch. Specifically, construction and vehicles seem to be distractions, and they seem to make it really hard for people to get through the process. And we've talked about that, so I'm not trying to gin up another conversation about that, because we promised ourselves we would talk about that with someone and play with the thing. Other comments? Anything you'd like to add from a school perspective, Tom? Either riffing off of Jerry or providing a different angle on it?
I can attest to the fact that there's lots of high school success dollars, and schools are absolutely, in some cases, because I'm speaking for myself, sometimes struggling to spend it all. And so, and part of it, maybe it's not always the amount. I mean, I think people get caught up in other parts of their jobs, et cetera, and then getting bids in on time, and then sometimes there have to be a set of free bids. You play that game, and then, like I said, getting a contractor to even bid on it sometimes because they're all busy. Some of them will just sign off knowing that someone else has bid on it, just so that they know they'll help us out so if that other contractor can get the job. But so I think there is some value in taking a look at this, because I think the one thing that I've always said, and I've preached it forever, and that is this pendulum will swing the other way. And we want to be on the right side of that pendulum, right? If we can. I mean, maybe that's not even possible. I don't know. But I think that it is worth the discussion. I just don't know that I have the right answer.
What's the spending deadline on the high school success funds? When do those run out, or do they?
I think it's in the fall. I think they extended it to August or September, didn't they, Dan?
I'm thinking that's what I heard.
I thought I heard they
I think I came up
or moved it, pushed it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it got moved. So that's helpful, but obviously it also has the potential for making it more interesting for other, perhaps more restrictive funds, although we might not necessarily be regarded as being a restrictive, way to go.
Well, I don't understand how high school success, being a state-funded program, gets an extension, but we can't do that with CTE Revive.
I don't have a good answer for that other than the fact that I have gone to the well on several occasions and the answer looks the same. I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, they haven't treated us the same from the word go, so that doesn't surprise me. So,
Anything else on that one? Just kind of a perennial frustration.
is there a way to be creative with those Revite funds to support apprenticeships and school business relationships, internships, try to connect back to really what it is we're trying to do with career exploration?
Well, I think for the most part, that's already baked into Revite, and it's something that we've been encouraging people to do in terms of building their relationships with business, labor, industry, and coming up with innovative ideas. I don't think anybody's ever said no to somebody working on a pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship idea, and nobody's ever said don't go to your partners. We want people going to their partners. In fact, that's one of the metrics. One of the key measures is how do you engage with your partners and how do you do that?
Well, what I'm brainstorming, this is a particular brainstorm, is that
Sure.
one of the conversations that we've had in the region is paid versus unpaid internships. There are companies out there that would love to take on an intern, but the kid, of course, wants to be paid and the company can't afford to pay it. And so is it possible to use some of those dollars to offset that? And say, you know what, we're going to pay, we have $100,000 here we're going to work with, and we're going to do it this way. And work with our school or business and industry partners. And yes, this is a paid internship. Or we subsidize the business to help. They pay part, we pay part. If I can get in.
I say we throw it on the list. We look at it for the upcoming RFA, and we talk to the people who would be able to basically control how we would do that, the yay or nay people, and then see what we can do. Because ultimately, kids need to be able to make money, and sometimes it may not be much, but it's enough of a sweetener that a learner will engage because they can help out at home, or they can help out as they get ready to plan their life after high school. And we were all kids, and we remember when a little bit was a help.
Arthur had something he wanted to add too, I think.
Oh, just real quick, looking at the history of the Revite grant, I think you're right on, Jerry. Early on, equity was such a big issue, and to push equity, the focus for almost, I think, 2 cycles was equity, and then it was partnerships, and we pushed partnerships real hard. Both of those decisions were made by this advisory committee. You guys are the ones that determine the focus of the grant, the next grant, and how it's going to be set up. I think you're right on looking at something a little bit out there. All right. So remember, I guess you just remember that when we get around to discussing next year.
Yeah, and I'll echo that, because you are the advisory. You are the people who have your feet on the ground, either in the schools and the districts or in aspects of business, labor, industry, and trades. And it's supposed to help everybody head the learners off in that direction. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see what we can do. We changed focus before, we can, or adjusted it. We can certainly adjust it again, really reemphasize that. And greetings to Casey. For a moment. Technology is so fun. Other questions on this particular topic? This is clearly one that we're going to carry over and continue to poke at. Seeing, hearing nothing there, we'll go ahead and we'll touch on the next item, learning walks. Something largely speaking that did not happen this year. We are encouraged because we have to do a final report, and the final reports from schools are not due until the middle of September. And there has been some robust conversation around the idea that everyone who is finishing up things probably will have more to share and more to say if they go to visit them in the fall. So we have decided that several different approaches, including programs want to wander about with video cameras or smartphones and show us what they've done, or we can work them onto a schedule, and we can have individuals from this committee, from our high school success partners, and from our CTE team go visit them. Then we would want to do that. And we had more to do and not enough here, which is a lousy excuse, but you know, that's kind of what it is. So we are proposing to roll that into fall, which will give us a little bit more of an opening to have some conversations and to do some work that will really show up what the schools are putting into their CTE programs. That being said, we will be reviewing and making available to all of you the anything that comes out of the periodic reports, the bright spots, things of that nature. We should also find out the CTE updates that goes out monthly from our team. Are you all getting that? I think we talked about that before, and I see some nodding of heads. Bridget is not getting it, so we'll make sure you get on the mailing list for that, because you should be getting it. Linda and I have the privilege of working on it on a monthly basis, and some of the things that are being done in the state that are Revive projects or not Revive projects, just simply CTE related projects are so innovative and so exciting. It's been a lot of fun to tell the story. The last newsletter went out, and I think we ended up with 12 or 15 editions of programs all over the state that were doing things that really were making a difference for community and for the learners. So that's one of the really, really fun things to do, is to see what sort of work is happening, who's doing what where, and being able to point that out. So we will, Bridget, make sure that you get that so that you're in the know. And
And
check
in
and
the
see it.
meantime,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Jen. I was going to say, we will check for Bridget. And in the meantime, as soon as I can find the link to our CTE update webpage, I will drop that in the chat so that you can, they're housed on the website as well as distributed by email. So give me a moment to find that tab and it'll be up there. Okay.
Fantastic. Which means you get to look back on all of the back issues and see the incredible coolness that's been going on, because in the face of everything that has been occurring this year and transitioning out of COVID circumstances and so forth, there's been a ton of really positive things coming out of the programs around the state. So it makes it a lot of fun. Questions, comments, concerns regarding? And we'll just drop the CTE update web page in the chat for your review. Okay, next item, advanced planning, looking at 2023 RFA planning and processing. Give you a moment to scan that. Now, our plans right now, because we're running out of year and summer is going to be a lot shorter than we think it's going to be, is we're going to be digging in, starting out a week from today, to tear into the old RFA and start to poke and prod it and see, based on the things that you've said to date, where we can work in some new ideas. And our hope is to develop a calendar that will give us probably every 2 to 3 weeks an opportunity to sit down and work with the RFA and go through it, make changes and updates. And by setting up that schedule, to invite you to participate anywhere along the way that you may happen to wish to do. You have a lot of experiences, you have a lot of ideas. And rather than trying to get them all banged out in a meeting like this, we want to be able to make sure that there's ample opportunity to pick through things and reflect your input. And of course, as we get closer to completion with the RFA, to bring you all together, go through the RFA, necessary conversations and reviews, make sure that you feel that we're putting out a product that makes sense from the standpoint of learners, from post-secondary, from secondary, and from business, labor, industry, and trade. So that as soon as we know that we can release an RFA and let the field know what's going on, we'll be able to put out the best possible tool and and get that moving forward. There are a couple of things that have to happen. As you're probably abundantly aware, we will be welcoming a new director. Is the deputy superintendent. Cole's position will shift as we get into the summer, and among certain things, we're going to be making. Linda slowed me down. I got a little bit excited. We're inviting, and they have accepted Ryan and Aaron being part of the advisory, but we have to pass their names and their resumes through the labor commissioner at Bully and also the director of ODE to make those appointments valid and to adhere to statute and rule regarding CTE revitalization. So they are inches away, almost at the finish line. We'll be working with them and also working with the sources internal to ODE and to Bully to get that done. But we also will have to make sure that the new director understands and supports the RFA that goes out to this particular grant. And that's another thing that, or another a gating factor, or another hurdle that we have to cross. So not only are we going to be reflecting what you want to do to make this the best RFA possible and the best circumstances possible to support the school and the ESDs, but we will also need to make sure that it fits in with whatever the overall goal is for the agency. That is, of course, based on funding being approved for us to continue the work. And we're still waiting to find out what's going to happen with that, as is just about everybody else. Questions, comments?
Hey, Dan, so the first meeting date on to look at the RFA, I think if I'm not mistaken, was next Wednesday.
Correct, yeah.
And then was there going to be any other meetings in between that time, between that and our next regular meeting?
Yes, we'll probably do every 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to do another RFA meeting.
Okay.
We're trying to start early just to get things going. And if you miss one, it isn't going to be
Okay.
horrible.
Calendar appointments will come out.
Say again, please.
Calendar appointments will come out.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We'll send the calendar appointments for everybody for the entire thing, and then you can pick and choose. It'll be the same link for all of them. And it's also a come as you can, come when you can. If you can only make it the last 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes, then please come versus not coming at all, because we really want to have you.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
We'll keep
you.
a good set of rolling notes for those meetings that everyone has access to, so you can check in if you happen to miss.
Dan, how much of the CTE revite for 23-25 is tied up in the legislative walkout? All of it?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for you, Jerry. My understanding is that there is essentially a maintenance level that we're going to be able to achieve that is smaller than the proposed budget. I think we were at 9.7 or 9.8 last go around billion, and the total amount for and I keep forgetting the term for it. If one of you could please enlighten me about that. Continuing service level. There we go. I forced it out of my own brain. Continuing service level will take it, I think, to 9.2 or 9.3. So less than what we had last year, billion, that is. So, and that's for the whole, not for all of education. We don't currently know if that's going to have a negative impact on Revite. We don't think it will, but we've also seen it kind of fluctuate over the years. I think at one point we were up to 10.1 or 10.2, and then we made our way back down into the 6s and 7s. So we can build it with a number in mind, and then we can scale it rather than waiting for somebody to figure out what the number is going to be. And that's probably about the best we can do. And that also would mean that if you think as a group that a larger number has value, not because it essentially is a shiny thing that's kind of attracting attention, but that it gives people what they need to be flexible, then I think we should just use a larger number and then calculate, do the math and figure out how many grants we can suck out of whatever that total bucket is. But it's usually said every year that we really don't know where things are with Revite, even though it's continued on again, off again, kind of like the seasons for quite a few years now, for 12 years. 11, 12 years, that we really don't know until the gavel falls and we see what the budget looks like. We really don't know what the deal is. I would be very surprised if it went away.
Thank you.
Other questions regarding the grant and the RFA? Next item that's really important is those of you who may want to keep hanging out with us, which would be really cool. Would I kick it over here to Linda and Art in a moment, and Art and Casey, for anything that they would like to throw in around the continuing work of the group and keeping as many of you on board as possible.
Thanks, Dan. I'll talk about the logistical end of it since that's my expertise. There is a link in the agenda to a Google survey for you. Really quick and easy, hopefully. If you can't access that, let me know. But that's your way to let us know. Just it gives you the time and the grace to determine what you want to do. And it would be great to hear back from you soon. But if you could get back to us in any event by the end of August to let us know whether you would like to stay on, that would be great. If you, regardless of whether you do or not, there's also a question on the survey as to any recommendations you might have. Tom was great, gave us a couple of recommendations, and we appreciate that. If anyone else has any recommendations and contact information, etc., feel free to use that form for that too. So we appreciate you all. I think that probably goes without saying, but we'll still say it. And if you would all like to continue with us, we would be overjoyed, but we understand you might not be able to. So just take your time and let us know.
Thank you, Linda. Art or Casey, anything to add?
Nope.
So again, we really value the guidance and we value the perspectives that we can't get from where we sit. And it does make a really, really tremendous difference for everyone beyond your own individual geographic areas. So it's fantastic. Other things that we want to talk about, other things you want to bring up, bright spots, points of joy, anything like that regarding the work that we do together that you want to share while we're all in the same spot? So with that, I guess the next meeting date, the next formal meeting date for the advisory committee itself, and this is not for the RFA work, but for the actual advisory, working on advisory related work. And I do suppose there's a good likelihood that this may be the meeting where we ratify the RFA, or it may end up being the meeting right after the meeting where we ratify the RFA if we pull everybody together and do that sooner. But it's looking like Wednesday, September 13th. The morning has been good to us, and we kind of figured that if we got our bid in early, we might be able to find a way onto your dance card before everything else found its way on there. See a little bit of calendar flipping going on. Anyone for whom that's not really going to be good, or do we just want to go ahead and say that September 13th, 9 to 11 is our go-to for now, and then we can, since some, if not all of us, will be together during the summer, we can always fine-tune a bit.
Yeah, I have a standing meeting on Wednesdays from 9 to 10, so it could fluctuate. Worst cases, I just wouldn't be able to join until 10.
Okay.
10 to 12 might be an option if I don't know if that is an issue
Okay.
for anyone else, but
I see Tom said nodding yes.
that's okay.
I'll be on Cycle Oregon that whole week.
You can join us from your smartphone clipped to your handlebars, though, Jerry.
You don't want to hear the huffing and the puffing and the panting.
Well, enjoy it. I understand it's the last one.
It is. It is the last week-long classic.
Talk about the end of an era.
It is.
Well, good on you, Jerry.
So you can have it. I can catch up later.
We'll save you a piece of cake.
I'll wait on it, Dan.
I'm actually hoping that by the time we get into fall, we'll be able to do a few of these where we're actually in the same room around the same table, and we'll bring bagels and there'll be a coffee pot. That would be kind of cool because it's been a long time.
I think bagels, that must be the Willamette Valley stuff. We're in more of the sweet stuff down here.
Well, we can get you some donuts, Jerry. That's no problem.
Bagels. Tom and I, we don't do bagels. Okay.
Okay.
That's not Eastern Oregon stuff. You gotta get out of that bagel talk.
Okay. Well, you know, we can put out. I'm going to try to put my camera back on again. I feel like I'm not part of the conversation. We could put out a nice spread and give you variety.
Okay.
We're all about the variety.
Yeah.
I love it. Good. Anything else to the order? Okay, well, we will be reaching out to you periodically. Look forward to seeing whoever may be available if you want to join up for the first round of the RFA. I'll call it an exploratory. I was thinking of another healthcare term, but I don't want to do that, so I'll just say exploratory. And we'll we'll start stepping into the new reality, whatever that reality happens to be.
Good.
Okay, we'll see you either on the 21st or we'll see you on down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.